Good morning. My name is B K Sethi. I'm the president of B K Sethi Marketing Limited, specializing in the ethnic food segment. I have the privilege of two very distinguished panelists with me to share their expertise in the market, grocery business and the ethnic business together. I have worked with them for years. We have Jamie Nelson, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Pattison Group, or Overweighty Sevan brand grocery stores in the West. And Jamie and I have worked for years, and he has tons of knowledge in the grocery business. He started his life in grocery, and he's still in the grocery business. On my right also is Ms. Sarab Hans. Sarab Hans is the president of Hans Dairies Limited in Ontario, and they are specializing in the ethnic dairy processor products, including yogurt, lassi, mango lassi, and stuff, and a lot of new innovations. She is also on the board of directors with the Food and Beverage Association of Ontario and Dairy Processors of Canada. Welcome, and thank you very much. The topic today we will be discussing is how to navigate the growing ethnic market in Canada, and what are the challenges and what are the opportunities to grow this the segment and benefit from it. The ethnic market is growing so fast that currently we are at about 26% of the total Canadian population. When I say ethnic market, means visible minorities, which started growing in but early 80s, and it's continued growing. As per Stats Canada, by the year 2030, our ethnic population will surpass 30% of our total population to about 7.2 million in total, which is again going to go by next 10 years, by 2040, will be about 12 million, or 38% of the total population. So this big segment does present a lot of opportunities for the grocers because everybody has to eat. Now, well, there is opportunities, but this also has a lot of challenges for the grocer and for the marketer. The biggest challenge is the diversity. We have not only one group of ethnics, but we have variety and also diversity in our ethnic segment. Now, not only diversity, we have diversity within the diversity. So everybody we call Chinese, but they could be Taiwanese, they could be Philippines, they could be Thailand, they could be Indonesian. They all different cultures, different food they eat. So we have to understand the diversity within the diversity. Second thing is that they speak different language. Every ethnic group has their own languages. They have their own culture. And cultures are different. We have to understand our customer to understand their culture so that we can design our marketing strategies. Social behaviors are different for each ethnic group. And then that makes a lot of difference in their consumption as well as their buying habits. So these are things that we are presented with the challenges of this. Finally, the ethnic of 25 years ago are getting old in their second generation, and the third generation even is also present a different challenge for the marketer because they're grown up here, they're educated here, they work here. And finally, Canada is allowing bringing in approximately 500 to about 800,000 new immigrants every year. So these new immigrants are not the similar habits as the old immigrants. These are highly educated professionals, bring in the money, and also more familiar with the culture and the landscape of the country. So these are the challenges we will be discussing and we have to consider to grow the market. So there is a big opportunity and the big challenges To explain further, I will definitely have the input from our experts here. Thank you. First, Jamie, what do you think that you will see in the next 10 years or 5 years, the change in or opportunity in this growing ethnic market?
Yeah, thank you, BK, and good morning, everyone. I work for the Pattison Food Group. For those who don't know, I'm based out of Vancouver. We have about 310 retail locations as well as a wholesale and manufacturing operations. Our biggest brand is Save On Foods, which we have about 185 stores. The Vancouver market, especially the Lower Mainland market, is very diverse. And to BK's point, diversity within inside diversity is very difficult to understand and merchandise to and purchase for and put a program for and a store presentation for. And it's I'd like to say that we have it all figured out and we got lots of work to do. What we do know, though, is that the consumer is changing, and it's our job as grocers to fulfill a demand. That's the purpose of a grocery store back 200 years. People coming and looking for something, and we supply them that product. In the past, I feel that over the years, there's been too much of, the grocery industry telling consumers what they can have and what they can't have. And I think that's really is what is changing, because the diversity of the consumer is saying, I want this, you need to get it for me, and if you don't get it for me, I'm going somewhere where I can get it. Now, they don't, of course, tell us that, but they walk across the street with their feet and shop somewhere else. So that continues to be a challenge. We pride ourselves on trying to merchandise our stores based on the communities we're in. The challenge that comes with that is how you scale that across all your stores, because the communities become very diverse at the same time. But it's very, very exciting, and to answer your question, BK, I see it continuing to change and continuing to evolve. I think there's a real opportunity with manufacturers and importers to work together to do the right thing for the customer. I see some challenges, we all see the challenges of language and labeling, and I feel that there's opportunities with technology to benefit us in those areas. You know, if there was one good thing that came out of COVID, I think it was the QR code, because we're all back to using it again. And when you try and understand what ethnicity you're actually talking to, is it Filipino, is it Chinese, if there's a barcode there or a QR code that you take a picture of, everybody's got a phone in their pocket, and it can speak to that consumer on where it came from, what the ingredients is, in their language. I think there's a real opportunity for that. We'll see, though.
Well, great. Thank you. Sarabji, what do you think within your processing? I know you're evolving with new products every day. What do you think is going to be the potential or the future of this ethnic growth?
I'm South Asian by background, so I focus very much on South Asian dairy. So when I talk about it, I talk from that viewpoint. It's hard for me to talk about other ethnicities, but I do feel that right now we're seeing a lot of inclusion of South Asian products on the shelves in the mainstream set. So that kind of tells us the picture that we're looking at. A lot of consumers are looking for the mainstream stuff, and they're also looking for ethnic products. And as a second generation South Asian, I still look for ethnic products because I grew up on South Asian cuisine, and that's a very, very big staple of our community. So as second generations, we're a little lazier. I don't want to make it at home. So it's a huge growing market for us. My mother still makes yogurt at home, even though I make it in my own manufacturing facility. So those guys, are still making their own. They're still very proficient. So the target market is very much the second and the third generation that are looking for that same cuisine that they grew up with in their household. So I think it's a very growing segment in the Ontario market and across Canada.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. And that brings me to the second question. That, Jamie, what do you think is going to happen with the second generation, and how would you treat them as a challenge, or would that be a potential second or the third generation who grew up here, educated here, and now, but they are still ethnic, they just still have the ethnic taste? How do you accept that challenge and grow from there?
Well, I think the other big difference is the availability of knowledge, and everybody's watching cooking shows on TV, everybody's traveling, social media, everybody's understanding or hearing about taste profiles. Understanding them might be a stretch, but they're out there, and that in the West, we're probably on the second generation now and moving forward to the third to some degree. So that consumer that wants the convenience, but might want, at the same time, one day their kids might want pizza and they want something from their home country, and the next day it might be vice versa. So it's about understanding the consumer, who they are, what they're looking for, but you can't, as a retailer, you just can't make assumptions on things. And we're too quick to make assumptions, I think, sometimes. You really got to try and understand who you're talking to and what they're looking for, and give them the opportunity. And then, if it sells, you're onto something. If it doesn't, the challenge with that, though, is it might sell in one location, and 100 miles away it might not sell. So you got to be, and that the scaling of that makes it very difficult. As we continue to try and get costs down at the same time. Yeah. When you see, we're going to see a lot of immigration, and yes, a lot of educated immigration, but as people come to a new country, they're going to be looking for value. There's lots of other costs inside the Canadian system, and you need to make sure that you're showing them value at the same time, and understanding the value. As a Canadian grocer, I understand the value of a head of lettuce or a steak very easily. Yeah. But when you get into diversity, you got to think a little bit differently.
Yeah, well, that brings me to the same thing that, when we set up the stores in the last 30 years, I've done so many stores in Canada, the flexibility is the key. What you sell in one location, maybe 2 kilometers down or 3 kilometers down, you have a different setup, because the ethnicity concentration of the store you're servicing is different. So that is very, very important, to be flexible, to be knowledgeable about your ethnicity you're servicing in that store market area. What do you think is going to, second generation and third generation, will impact your business in manufacturing?
It's a growth potential for me, for sure. I find that, as we get different palettes, we have a larger community that's looking for products. The risk factor, as Jamie kind of mentioned, is how do we make this a profitable business and not expensive to the consumer, and still get it to where it needs to be. And I think that has always been the hiccup, because we're looking for mass distribution, we're looking for, cost savings on that end, and that always kind of is a hiccup when you're launching something or you're trying to put something on the shelves that is very regional or very specific to a certain community. And I think that is kind of a challenge that we have to work out, like how are we going to get these products to the consumers. 18 years ago, when I started with the dairy in South Asian market, nobody was open. The doors were very much closed. Nobody understood that, there is a palette that people are looking for. They assumed that it was, we were all buying vanilla. And I just kind of say, that's what we had on the market. And so the assumption was that's what everybody is picking up. And I think the assumption has changed. And I think it is going to continue to change as you see the variety of products. And we were just talking, I went down to the US just a month ago to do a retail audit and realized that we're very much ahead of the curve when it comes to ethnic foods. Our offerings are there. When you go to the mainstream US stores, it's not there. Yeah. It really isn't. It may be there in the shelf-stable side, on the spice side, and that type of things. But when you look at refrigeration products, it's not there. So we're very, very much ahead of the curve, which is nice to see.
Yeah, I think the main reason in U.S. and Canada is that U.S., they consider Latinos as ethnic. 40 million Latinos in the country. That is more than Canada total population, and that's why they do not want to spend time like we are. We have Chinese stores servicing Chinese, then we have the Indian, South Asian, Arabic stores, everything. We are diverse. Yes. We're small population-wise, but we're diverse. But they are more concentrated in the biggest segment, which is Latino for them. For them to cater to Arabic, it will be very small. So I think that is one reason. And secondly, I think Jamie's brought up the value. The second generation wants convenience. And they're not as price conscious as their parents were, but they want value. Yeah. They want a value, they want convenience, and they want a quality product. Yes. And the third thing, they're also the second and the third generation is there's more health conscious. Our parents were not health conscious. They were just feeding the family and growing the family and educating the family. That's all they did. I think there is the difference between the second and the third generation. Now, our ethnic food can grow a lot more, and is growing a lot more, is because about approximately 50% of the Canadian mainstream have tried ethnic food. The reason being that we are global market right now. Everybody has an access to internet. Everybody has access to any other recipes they can on the internet. Their children go with your children, and they come back and saying, Mom, John brought pierogies today. This is how we learn, this is how we expose the product. And the Canadian consumers are traveling a lot, what they did 25 years ago. Before they went to Winnipeg or Saskatchewan. Now they go to Caribbean, Hawaii and others, and they bring back those tastes. And that is what the growth of ethnic market, ethnic food is. So what do you think that how we can actually grow this ethnic food concept into the mainstream? Have you ever considered that we're only concentrating on the ethnic, or which we should be like the curry sauce or the oyster sauce is not going to be pizza or pasta sooner. But ultimately, one of the things, like, I don't know anybody who does not know what samosa is. Mm-hmm. They all know. Yeah. Okay, they might not have tasted it. What is butter chicken? Just an example. Oyster sauce. Everybody knows. Before, 25 years ago, soy sauce was the Chinese food. And China later was the bread. Yeah. So this is the difference. What do you think, Jamie, that how can we grow the proper SKUs to the mainstream consumers?
Well, I tell you, the biggest challenge we have, especially if I can focus on, let's talk about Asian products, because we have a number of stores in our Richmond market where it's 60% Asian right now, and we actually have a chain. Well, I'm not quite calling them a chain yet because there's only 3 stores, but they are focused completely on the Asian market. The biggest challenge we have, and I think this would cross over in a lot of areas, is the availability of product and the right product at the right price, and especially the shelf-stable product. It's pretty easy to get produce, because produce is very important, and getting the right produce and the right spec on the produce. And I think we do a good job on that side of it. But when it comes to the dry grocery, we're buying from an importer and a distributor, or wholesaler and a distributor, and there's 3 or 4 people in between there. And then of course we're not driving enough volume yet, like we do in our big to get the value equation to the right spot. I think there's a real opportunity for manufacturers and importers to work with retailers, and then retailers have to open up their mind, I'm talking to myself, and make sure that we treat them differently than we do Procter & Gamble, because it's a different business. It's an opportunity to grow for both the manufacturer, the wholesaler, the importer, and the retailer. And by working together, that we'll solve some of those problems, because they're complex. And when in a time when we're all trying to drive costs down to give the consumer value, it can make it challenging.
Yes, I think so. You brought in thing that how would you motivate the Canadians to buy your ethnic mango lassi or something you innovate? How do you think that there's an opportunity to grow your consumer segment within the mainstream?
Very much so. There's a huge opportunity. Before we sat down today, I had looked at cookbooks sold last year, the top 10 cookbooks that were sold in North America last year. 5 of them were not North American based. There was Vietnamese cuisine, there was Thai cuisine, there was Indian cuisine. From that, you kind of garner that people are bringing those cuisines into their household. So there's a huge opportunity. For my business, we do target a very much mainstream consumer too, but we target it on the clean product profile. So we target them on, we're making a product that has 5 ingredients or less. You can pronounce every ingredient. So we're going after that clean ingredient profile, that person that's looking for something that's nutritious and healthy. So that's the proposition that we're selling to them. And then, of course, the taste is something that you may have grown up with and you may enjoy or you may not. Like I make a salty yogurt drink. And if you haven't grown up with a salty yogurt drink, you are going to throw it in the trash. So, there's certain products that do have crossover effects and certain that you can't have crossover effects. But I think we are all very much open to bringing in different cuisines into our household.
Yeah. No, I've been in this for about 40 years now, but I think there is a great opportunity, without doing any research, in every household in the evening, the question is, what are we going to have for dinner? 4 kids, I want Mexican, the other one, I want pasta. You have 4 different requirements. In every family, that means the ethnic foods are being exposed. They're not developed to the level, but they are exposed and there's a good potential in it.
Just to add on that, BK, one of the things that one of my colleagues brought to my attention here last week is every major restaurant in Vancouver has an ethnic menu on it, and a lot of times that they rotate through. And that's telling, to your point right there. People are going out and wanting to experiment, want to try something different. They might not be that brave to come home and try and cook it yet, but they're going to learn. They're going to learn.
And to your point, I came via rail, and one of the food offerings was butter chicken. I was like, okay, nice.
Thank you. Okay, well, finally, I think we have all the opportunity and we're challenging. The biggest challenge we have, if you're talking about ethnic market, is the communication. What kind of strategies do you think that we should evolve to communicate to them that the value we're presenting is real? We understand your demands. How would you do that? The ethnic media is one of the things, but there are other areas we have to, because the second generation is not necessarily watching the ethnic media, not necessarily. They might be. But what do you think that we should be doing to communicate our message of the product and our services we're offering? Jamie?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because you can spend a lot of money on marketing or communication and you're sending it to the wrong people. So I think this is where, once again, technology is a benefit to us in the sense that we can zero in on the right markets with the right messages, understand what they are. Is it TikTok, or is it still the newspaper, which is pretty well gone. And to be honest, this is where I start aging myself, because it gets really, really confusing. I'm not sure what TikTok is yet, sorry, but I heard lots about it. So there's, you need, just like if we put ourselves in or if I put myself in the same position, I want information on things that are relevant to me. And the ethnic consumer wants, relevant information. So we have to understand who they are. One of the things we do is use our loyalty data on a macro level to try and target to the right people, the right items at the right time. I think the biggest opportunity we've seen in the ethnic segment moving forward is understanding the holidays and the celebrations. Because as traditional Canadian grocers, Easter's a big week, Thanksgiving's a big week, Christmas is a big week. Well, there's a whole breadth of other holidays across all different nationalities that we're missing out of, and we're trying to grow that opportunity by paying more attention to the proper segments.
Yeah.
When I started my business, it was all word of mouth, because I didn't really have the funds to do promotion. But when I started promoting, I did a lot of ethnic promotions on ethnic newspapers, radio channels, and TV stations. And then as I progressed in my journey, I decided that, I think these people are consuming mainstream media, so let me reduce my budget on that and go to mainstream media. And in 2018, I changed my packaging for my products, and I did a huge marketing push, like same product, different packaging. Instantly, my sales dropped 40%. And that's when I realized, oh no, these consumers are not consuming mainstream media as much as I assumed that they were. They're still very, very much consuming South Asian media, satellite channels, that type of thing. And it was a wake-up call for me, because I thought, oh, you know what, we're kind of mainstream, everybody's consuming mainstream. And I realized, no, I have to go back to ethnic marketing, and that means within marketing in 3 or 4 different languages on 3 or 4 different channels. And that was what the impact, that has more impact for an ethnic brand than the mainstream. And that's just from my own experience. But I found that people still consume a lot of ethnic media, and that's, if you're launching something, that's where you have to go.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we always incline towards the ethnic media. or mainstream media, but those are very expensive for a small manufacturer, ethnic product, something whether in Mexican or Indian or whatever. I think what I found in my 40 years is that the special events is the very, very economical way to communicate to them. Because in the ethnic market or ethnic consumers, our food consumption, our every celebration, every social event focuses on food. Whether it's a Ramadan, 30 days of your fasting, but you should see the food they consume in the evening. Yeah. It is a big social event every evening. So if you really look into the ethnic food sales during the Ramadan, is more than average.
Because so true. On dairy, it's a huge sale during Ramadan on dairy.
Because our ethnic celebrations and events are focused on food. Our religious things are focused on food. I'm talking about all ethnic groups. I think the special events, just like Chinese New Year, Baisakhi, Cinco de Mayo, Caravana, all these are the events we can use to communicate to them in the real sense that you also understand that there is a value for Baisakhi or there's a value for Cinco de Mayo. We understand that. I think that will be very, very helpful. So I think with this, and thank you very, very much, and thank you. And I would like to, if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. Anything we didn't cover?
Hello.
Yeah.
Excellent discussion. I really enjoyed it. My name is Dr. Ali Java, and we are trying to enter the North American market, specifically focused on mango and mango-related products, not the fresh one, but freeze-dried, dehydrated. What is your thought? Like, is it a good approach to go ethnic, or should we just go straight to mainstream?
Okay.
That's a really hard one.
No, okay, right.
It does kind of depend on the marketing budget, you know, how you want to push. Because if you go ethnic, it's a smaller footprint, and that gives you a little more, you know, learning and trying to figure out how the market is. If you go mainstream, and I find that, you know, now that everybody's using AI and computer and technology to figure out, you know, your turnovers per shelf, that type of stuff, sometimes you may not get the time to prove yourself on mainstream. You'll get more time on the ethnic sect to prove yourself, so that might give you more room to build a base. So, but it's a very hard one. It depends on who you want to hit, why you want to hit them, you know?
Yeah, I say one of, you know, the biggest challenge in Canada is the size of the country and the supply chain. Yeah. And, you know, without understanding your business fully, it's how you can service that. Are you, you know, looking to be regionalized, or are you trying to be, you know, national? It's different challenges. One of the things we try and do with the different banners we have, for instance, our ethnic banner, when we bring something in and it really starts to sell, it really starts to move, it's showing good growth, then we start testing it in a number of our Save on Food stores, which is our big banner, and then we start moving forward to where we would have it full distribution, and then we can actually put it in our warehouse and, you know, buy truckloads and get costs down. And in theory, that sounds like a great idea, but it's reality of it is it's tough to execute that at certain times, especially with the, you know, the fight for shelf space. You know, we pride ourselves at our organization, though, to make sure that we're giving the up and coming entrepreneurs, the new products, the opportunity to get on shelf, because if you don't ever get an opportunity, we'll never know for sure ourselves. And to Sarab's point, there's all this data that tells us why we shouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. And I think if we just follow it completely, we'll be in a spot where our offering is very simple, very plain, and very cookie cutter, and that is not what the consumer's looking for.
And my experience, I think if you're bringing in dried mango or mango pulp or something like this, I would incline to go to the ethnic market first, because at least you do not have to educate them about the product right now. You don't have to invest so much money, and you're establishing a little base that you can cover your expenses to going into the market. At the same time, you learn, and then you find out the pockets. Like Surrey Delta is more ethnic population of South Asian. That will you do. So you go to the retailer, big retailer, convince them that this only all I want is 2 stores. Let's try this. And I back up my thing. I think that approach will be a step by step will be the best for you. Thank you. Any other question? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It's really informative. My question to you guys would be, as a small company that are starting up to offer, foods that to be distributed into supermarkets, how do you suggest that we handle the distribution? Would you rather have a third party take care of the distribution, or because third parties distributors take a lot of cut as well, or would you rather that you take it in house? What are your experiences? And thank you.
Well, from my perspective, and I can only speak for my company, what we try to do with everybody is look at ways to reduce costs that are beneficial to both parties. So if it makes more sense for the supplier to do it this way, and lowers their costs for them, which in turn should lower our costs, we're game. If in a lot of cases, though, we do a lot of pickup right now. We'll pick up right across the country, even though we're Western based, because we feel that we can do that less expensive than the supplier can, and they benefit from it, and we benefit from it in that process. As a new supplier, though, it's really difficult to get into the door and have the conversation with the right people in order to move that forward. I was just, BK and I were reminiscing today, and I've known him for a lot of years. Why I know him for so many years is he's so persistent. He just is so persistent. So my advice, if you're trying to get in the door, you gotta be persistent. And if you can find ways to make the buyer or category managers life a little easier, show them some wins or her some wins, they'll be more receptive to that.
Well, okay, I can answer this question. I think if you're bringing in new product and your products have the market, you think there is a market, I would definitely use the distributor as your arm going into the retailer, because that is what the retailer prefers. Instead of having 14 suppliers and 14 times the door opening in the winter and cold, whatever, he would rather have one whom he can really trust rather than have 13 people dealing with him. One person selling soy sauce, other noodles, that is not what the convenient for them. But once you grow the market, then you can go out saying, listen, these are the stores I'm selling, this is my turns, I want you to help me and get it into your warehouse. That will be a selling proposition because you're considering his benefit also. Because if he doesn't succeed, you're not succeeding. So you make sure that you're doing something. Of course, your margins will be less because you'll be sharing your profit with the distributor. But don't forget, even if you do yourself, it will cost you too. Yeah. So I think do that math. Thank you.
A variety of answers. Like there's no right answer, because like Mr. Sethi is saying the distributors, but when I grew my business, I stayed away from them because I found that the ones that were available to me were not pushing my product. It was just another roster on their truck. So after, I think, last year, I kind of farmed it out. But for 18 years, I did my own distribution. I did my own sales. It was expensive. It's not cheaper than what they're doing, but it gives you control. You have so much more control. The person that's showing up at the door can have a conversation with the buyer and say, listen, I'm seeing your shelf empty. Why am I seeing it empty? Maybe you need to up it. It gives you more control, I found, and it also gave me more control over launching something. So I have products that do very, very well, and I have products that are new entrants that do shit. And so those products, the distributor is not going to push. So I've always tried to keep it in-house because I'm pushing that. I have to show they are just, it depends on who you partner with, right? There's ones that are much more aggressive, but the cost portion that they're going to take is much more higher. So you just have to, be careful. But there's so many ways to do it. But my philosophy is always control it. If you can control, and if you're making zero, but you're controlling everything, you know that you have a market share that you're going to be able to, at one point, have higher turnovers.
Yeah, but also it depends on the category or the segment. Yeah. If you are in a more service level, like if it's a fresh product, within 7 days, you got to replace it. You don't have a
You do what
choice.
I
You
do.
can't find a dedicated distributor who is going to be there and doing that. I think it also depends. If you're dry product, if you have soy sauce or noodles, you don't have to service it every week. You could do that, and then it's possible. It depends on the category, like you said.
Very much
there's
so,
so
yeah.
many ways to do it. Thank you. Anything else? Thank you. Well, we really appreciate it. Appreciate your coming, and enjoy the ethnic food and the ethnic market. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jimmy.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Sethi.
you.